Okay, so today we are going to work on some word problems, okay? These are word problems that you have seen before, okay? We did these in Algebra 1. First thing I want to make sure you all know is the word and the term consecutive, okay? So you do need, well, actually two terms, okay? First one I want to go over is integers. Okay, does anyone happen to know what is an integer?
A number.
What kind of number?
A number with a positive.
Is it just a positive number?
Any number.
Okay, is it any number? It is a real number, yes. An integer is any counting number. Okay, so any counting number. Okay, basically that means whole numbers, positive or negative, and zero. Okay, so any number that you could count. Okay, any number that would appear on a number line. Okay, integers do not include fractions, so no fractions, no decimals, no square roots, nothing like that. Okay, so no roots, no radicals, no fractions, no decimals. Okay, definitely no imaginary numbers. We will deal with those later. Okay, but an integer is any counting number. I'm sorry. We will deal with imaginary numbers, yeah. Okay, the other thing you need to make sure you know is consecutive. Okay, another term is consecutive. So what does the word consecutive mean?
Ongoing.
Like, what if I asked you, what are the consecutive years in high school? No, I'm not, sorry, not how many, but what are they? Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. We hope. Some people have to repeat. We're not talking about them. Okay? Consecutive. So consecutive means in order. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about consecutive integers. So numbers that go in order. So counting numbers.
So consecutive and condescending mean like the same thing?
No. We will go save that question. We don't need to have that answer on the video, thank you. Okay. So two consecutive integers. So two consecutive integers. The first integer is always defined as x. Okay, so your first integer is always x. So if you have consecutive integers, we would have x, and then how do you get to the next number? What would you add? X plus 1. So x and x plus 1. Okay, if I need to go to the next one, you'd have x plus 2, then x plus 3. So you're counting by ones. Okay? Two consecutive even integers. Okay, so let's underline the important things here. Consecutive integers, okay, were x, and then x plus 1, x plus 2, x plus 3 if you kept going. Two consecutive even integers, okay? We always start with x. If I'm going evens, okay, so counting like 2, 4, 6, 8. What am I adding every time? 2. So x plus 2. If you needed to get to the next one, you'd have x plus 4, etc. Okay? The next one, consecutive odd integers. Like I said, we always start with x. How far apart are odd integers? 2. Okay? We are still counting by 2s. You do not count by odd numbers. Okay? So we're not counting by like 1 and then 3. Odd integers are still 2 apart from each other. So it is super important. Okay, but think about it. Odds, like I wrote them like 1, 3, 5, 7. They can still be odd numbers, but how far apart are they? They are 2 apart. Okay? So when you count odds, yes. So x is your first odd number. Then if you get to the next one, you would count by 2s. Yes. Okay? So be really careful. Do not confuse the term even with positive. Okay? Even and positive get really confusing. Okay? Also, do not confuse the term odd with negative. Okay? I know that sounds silly, but you will see where these get a little bit confusing and people mix them up. Okay? So, your steps to solving. Steps to solving. You always follow these exact same steps. Generally, these are the steps for most word problems. It doesn't matter if we're dealing with integers or just regular word problems. Okay, so step 1 is always to define the integers. So we are going to write smaller equals and larger equals. There's nothing to fill in there. I'm just showing you how we would write the steps. Then step 2, put the word problem into an equation. Step 3 is solve and check to see that the answers fit the problem. I'm not actually saying I want you to plug them back in. This is more of a critical thinking thing. Like, does this make sense? Okay, so start thinking about, does my answer make sense type deal. Okay, so for the first one, I want you to find 2 consecutive positive integers. So we're looking for consecutive positive integers. Okay, so underline what we're finding. Okay, consecutive positive integers, such that the square of the smaller number is 1 more than twice the larger. So I am finding 2 consecutive positive integers. So your answer will be 2 parts, not just one answer, you will have 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and write this equation. So the first thing I'm going to write is smaller equals, your smaller one always equals x. Your larger number, now we don't write first and second on purpose because first and second in and of themselves have a number and we don't want to confuse things. So we always write smaller and larger. It's just a little bit easier way of writing these things. So if your smaller number is x and I am looking for consecutive positive integers, what will your larger number be? X plus what? 1. Okay, consecutive positive integers. A lot of people see positive and they get that confused with even and they count by 2s. That would be a mistake here. Now let's go ahead and write our equation such that the square of the smaller, so square the smaller, is means equals, so x squared equals 1 more than 1 plus, twice means multiply by 2, the larger, x plus 1. Now, whenever you're doing something to one of these, make sure you are putting them in parentheses, even on that x squared. Okay, sometimes you're going to have to distribute, so you want to make sure that you put these in parentheses. Let's go ahead and work this out. X squared plus, what do I do first here? Do I add or multiply? Multiply. Please do not make that very remedial mistake, okay? Make sure you're following order of operations. So, sorry, x squared equals, not x squared plus. X squared equals 1 plus, distribute that 2x plus 2. Combine like terms, you got x squared equals 2x plus 3. Now, just like we've been doing in the rest of our problems, what does your equation have to equal before it can be solved? 0. So how would I move these things? Should I move them to the left or the right? The left. We always want my largest exponent, so in this case 2, to be positive before we factor. So subtract 2x, subtract 3. Do that to both sides. We're going to get x squared minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. Then we factor and solve. Okay? This is factorable. All of these will be factorable. All right? So you're going to have x, 1 positive, 1 negative. What multiplies to 3 adds to negative 2 would have to be negative 3, positive 1. Split them up, set each part equal to 0, and solve. So I get an answer of x is negative 1 or x is positive 3. Now, let's check our answers. Are those both my answers? No. Okay? I told you we're finding 2 numbers, but those are not them. Which of these does not work? Negative 1. That doesn't work because I was looking for consecutive positive integers. So if my first answer is 3, what is my next answer? 4. Okay, consecutive positive integers. Those are your answers. So you can either use logic and common sense and read the question and come up with your answers, or I could plug them back in over here. Either way is fine, and you'll get the correct answer, hopefully. Okay, let's try another one. For number 2, one positive number is 6 more than another. So I'm going to have 2 different numbers. So I have smaller and larger. Okay, one positive number is 6 more than the other. The sum of their squares is 68. Find the numbers. So I'm looking for 2 numbers, okay, and they are both positive. So remember, they're positive, and I have 2 numbers, okay? So one number is 6 more than another. So that means your smaller number, we always start with x. How do I write the larger? X plus 6, right? Okay. The sum of their squares, so that means take both of them and square them. Sum means add, square the other one. Is means equals, so equals 68. find the numbers. This is something that you can solve. Now remember, when you do this, x squared plus, can I distribute that exponent? No, you have to write it out twice. Okay, when you're squaring a binomial, it must be written out twice. This becomes a FOIL problem, so we get x squared plus. If you FOIL these together, we get x squared. Outside gives you plus 6x. Inside is plus 6x. Last is plus 36. Now, do I want this to equal 68? No, I want it to equal 0, so what can I do in the same step? Subtract 68 equals 0. I want everything to equal 0. Then we combine like terms, so put together your numbers, put together your letters. Okay, so 2x squared plus 12x. 36 minus 68 gives you negative 32 equals 0. And factor and solve. So take out a GCF first of 2. Left behind we'd have x squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0. Or, yes. Then factor again. Like I said, these will all be factorable, so it's possible to factor all of these. You know you'll have one x plus and one with an x minus. To multiply to negative 16, add to positive 6, you would need a positive 8 and a negative 2. Split these up, set each part equal to 0. What happens with that 2 on the outside? It just goes away. Okay, it would divide away, so you don't even have to write it down. So we get x is negative 8 or x is positive 2. Now, are those your answers?
No.
No. Which one does not make any sense? The negative 8 doesn't make any sense. Okay, so you know that your answers are 2 and what? 8. Okay, remember, one was x plus 6. It just so happens that this was a negative 8. This one is not related to that one in any way. Okay, it's just a coincidence. So I don't want you to think that you can just change the signs. Any questions so far?
No.
Yes, no?
So we plug in the other number into the larger equation?
Yes, no. So you plug in your answer into these equations.
So you put the 2 in the larger one.
Yeah, x plus 6. So 2 plus 6 is 8.
So we find your other number. That's what
Yes,
okay.
you can plug these in to get your small and your large numbers.
Okay.
Yes, Aiden.
Is there always, like when you work it out, one answer that's going to be wrong?
Yes, there's always going to be one answer that works and one answer that just doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So it could be it doesn't make sense because it's not generally it doesn't make sense because it's not positive. Sometimes it doesn't make sense because we might be asking for an even or an odd, but there's always going to be one that just doesn't make sense. Okay? Let's flip this over and